Now, welcome to Be in the Room, episode 5 out of 20, how to stop shrinking and how to start leading with purpose. Again, this is a 20-part series that I have launched in the month of January, where I'm going live Monday to Friday from 9 o'clock a.m. Pacific time in order to bring you the powerful, game-changing, life-changing leadership tools that I use with high-powered executives, with senior leaders, with top 500, Fortune 500 companies, Fortune 100 companies. These are the tools and the infrastructures that companies are paying a lot of money and investing a lot of dollars in their leadership to learn in order to accelerate growth, in order to accelerate culture. And these are the same tools that can be applied not only to large companies, but to individual leaders as well. And now when I say leaders, I'm not just talking about the people who are leading, have direct reports. I'm talking about people who are leaders of self. I always say that, yes, I used to be in an organization where I led up to about 100 people at one time. And even as a solopreneur now, I am no less a leader today than I was when I had 100 people reporting to me. Because I'm constantly growing something, building something, I'm leading others, I'm creating an impact with other people, whether that is the people in my home, whether that is the people that I am friends with, whether that is my clients, and whether that is the growth of even my own business. So I'm using these tools in order to accelerate my growth as an entrepreneur, because these tools, when they were given to me, were something that helped me to 10x my life, not just in my leadership, but in all aspects. And this is what I want to be able to give to all of you so that you can start leading 2026, not just with big lofty goals, but with actual tools and strategies in order to be successful at the goals that you set out for yourself, and maybe even make them think bigger than what they currently are. So let's get started. Now, just so that everyone is aware, I'm going to say hi to some people. Hey, Sean, thanks for joining. Bhavna, I see you. Welcome, welcome. Hey, Jay, welcome. EJ Childs, hi. Okay, Dawn's in the house. McLeod. All right. Let me know where you're calling in from, and I'll make sure. And by the way, this is, of course, a live format. Live format means that there's no teleprompters. It means that there's no exact script. This is a bit fluid. So at any point, if you have questions, you can feel free to quote unquote interrupt me. Put your questions in there, and I'll make sure to get to them as quickly as I can. Now, today's series is all about redefining enough. Now, the reason why we are talking about that today is because we have spent, if you have been with us for the entire week, we have spent the whole week talking about tools to help us to communicate clearly, tools to help us to identify and assess where we are and where we want to go, using emotions seeing emotions not as a weakness, but as a strong data point to make more strategic decisions. We also talked about what to expect when it comes to change from an emotional perspective. Because one of the things that I see clients time and time again do is exit a goal quickly because they are shaming themselves for emotions that they feel or thoughts that they have that are completely normal and expected for where they are in the journey. So we talked about the emotional cycle of change so that you can see whether you are in, uninformed optimism, informed pessimism, when you are in the valley of despair and what you need to do there, when you are in informed optimism, and what to do when you've actually reached the completion of your goals. What's going on from Boston? Black Girl and her Shepherd. Nice to see you. Leslie Ann's here. Hey, Leslie. So, and then yesterday we had a conversation around where you are in terms of, from an emotional perspective, can impact your performance, can impact your behaviors as well. And the thing that we left off on yesterday was talking about how it is possible. So we had 3 phases of the performance curve. You're stuck, you're working it out, or you are in the lighting it up phase. Now, one of the big things we landed on yesterday was talking about how even though you can be externally looking like you are in the lighting it up phase, internally you are still susceptible to feeling stuck, susceptible to wanting to work it out. So on the one hand, in other words, it is very possible and very common to perform lighting it up without feeling like you're lighting it up. And that is one of the biggest things that so many of my clients come to me with, because my clients, they are coming to me when they have achieved high things, when they've achieved great objectives, when they have essentially achieved so many of their goals. And yet still, even though they've achieved those goals, they're still feeling this sense of, why doesn't this feel like enough for me? And if this doesn't feel like enough, if I set this goal out for myself to accomplish and I get here and it doesn't feel like enough, well, then what is the point of even setting higher goals if I'm just going to get there and continue to feel like it's not enough? In other words, it can help. What that pattern of thinking can accelerate is a feeling of hopelessness, is a feeling of stuckness, to say, well, maybe this is just what it is. Maybe it is just what it is, that that meeting goals doesn't necessarily mean fulfillment. And maybe I'll never be happy. And maybe it will never be enough. And maybe I just need to be okay with that reality. And this is what keeps people stuck and small. So this is the narrative that I'm helping my clients to challenge in order for them to be able to find ways to not just say, I'm going to either do great work or I'm going to be fulfilled, but how can I reignite feeling, lighting it up both externally and internally? Because this is something that I went through myself as well. And thank you so much for, I'm going to pin this copy here. Whoops. I don't want these filters. Okay, I'm going to try and figure that out in a second. Hey, Ganesh. Okay. I've got a filter on. I'm not going to bother taking it off because I don't even want to play around with it. And just so you know, for those of you who are seeing people enter the word comment into the chat, thank you so much, because this series, a lot of the stuff that I'm covering in this series are themes that I am bringing forward in the book, Be in the Room, that is going to launch on January 20th. You have the opportunity at any point in this live, if anything is resonating with you, to comment the word book into the chat, and you will automatically receive a link in order to pre-order your copy on Amazon. Just a heads up for people in Canada, the pre-order isn't yet available in Canada, but make sure you just bookmark it, because January 20th, the paperback will be available for you to order on Amazon.ca. And I think that goes for a lot of places in the world too. All right, so coming back to this notion of enough. All right, so here's a little story about me. Back in 2016, I wrote a blog, and the title of the blog, it was like in the middle of the night where I just couldn't sleep and I went down to my computer. The title of the blog was, Why Am I So Fucking Greedy? And the title of that blog said it because here I was sitting up in the middle of the night, typing away on my computer and basically feeling like all I was doing was complaining about all the things that I had. And I couldn't understand why. Because here I was in, an age of, I don't know how old I was in 2016, maybe like 32 years old. And I had achieved heights in my career that I never thought possible for myself as a 32-year-old woman, in an industry I never thought possible. I was a director of a large team, a director at a time when you looked around, and I was in a company that hosted 60,000 employees, and only 1% of those employees, of those senior leadership employees, were anyone of color, anyone who's Black. So therefore, I didn't see myself represented in high levels of leadership, and yet still I've had found a way to earn that title for myself, to earn a six-figure salary. I had a home. I had 2 beautiful and healthy children. I was in a beautiful and healthy marriage. I was in a community that was so collaborative and so great. I was basically raising my children in a village. I had 2 cars in the driveway. I basically, from the outside looking in, had everything that anyone could ever want at the age of 32. And then I couldn't figure out why I was up in the middle of the night feeling so unhappy and mad at myself, like legitimately pissed off at myself, because here I was with everything that anyone checked off, all the boxes that I thought I was supposed to check off. The degree, the home, the marriage, the kids, the high-paying job, and I still didn't feel fulfilled. And I kept stifling that down because my belief was that, well, You're the problem then. You're the problem. If this isn't enough for you, then you got to figure out how to make yourself happy with this, because really and truly, this is all you should get. This should be enough for you. And instead of that making me feel settled, it constantly left this nagging feeling in my head that says, why is it that if this is supposed to be enough, I feel so compelled to want more? Why do I believe that there still could be more for me? Why do I still believe that there is something bigger that I could be bringing to this world? Because yes, I checked off so many boxes, but the one box that I wasn't checking off for myself was that I was doing a job. I was performing really well in a job that I could do, but I didn't want to do it. It wasn't connected to any purpose for me. It wasn't connected to anything that I cared about. I wasn't ever going to go home and research like the, cutting edge strategies from a cloud perspective. It wasn't where my heart was. And I so badly wanted to do something that involved my heart, that involved purpose for me, that made me feel like I could build something that meant something to me, that could create a legacy. But that felt greedy. That felt selfish. That felt like, how dare you ask for more when you've already been given so much? How dare you ask for more when you have already achieved way more than people who are behind you and more than they could have expected for you? And what I learned, especially as I shared this story within my organization, is that I wasn't alone in feeling this way. When I shared this story, so many people came up to me afterwards and said that they felt the exact same way, that they had accomplished so many things, that they were doing so well in work and feeling empty, like it wasn't enough. And instead of them searching for what the next level of enough could look like, all they did was shame themselves and dislike themselves for even wanting it. And this is the part of the journey that we're going into now, is because we can have plans for ourselves, but what are those plans backed by? What are the beliefs that those plans that you created for yourself are based on? Because if they are based on the belief that you don't deserve more, that you don't need any more, that you are greedy for wanting more, then guess where they're going to stay? They're going to stay small. But if you change the belief, if we check that belief, if we better understand what is the belief that is guiding our vision and our goals, then we can ensure that the next thing that we tackle isn't just the next thing because it seems like the next thing. It's not just getting a VP title because you're a director. It's not just about getting a better car because of the one that you have, but it's about finding the next step that is actually in alignment with what it is that you are missing and what it is that you want more of. But we can't create that step. We can't strategically create that step until we check the belief that is driving it. And beliefs play such a huge role in how we show up, because our belief about enough is going to dictate what our next step looks like. I'm going to tell you this other story to reinforce how beliefs play a role in our lives. Now, there's a story about how they train elephants in the circus, okay? This is like back in the day, back in the day, how they would train elephants in the circus. So what they would do is they would take baby elephants, they would tie a rope around their ankles, and they would tie that rope to a stake in the ground. And essentially, as soon as the baby elephant was tied to that stake, what do you think happened? The baby tried to get away. It would be pulling on that rope and trying to get loose. And what would eventually happen is they would realize that, well, that doesn't work. So they would eventually stop trying. Now what happens is that baby elephant actually grows older, stronger. And the thing about it is that despite the fact that that baby elephant is older and stronger, they don't even need to tie a rope to that elephant's ankle anymore. Actually, they even if the rope is around the ankle, there's no need to even put a stake in the ground. The reason why is because that elephant has been trained to believe that if they tug on that rope, they will not get the outcomes that they're looking for. And so they stop trying. Despite the fact that they're stronger now, despite the fact that they could technically go wherever they want to go because they're huge. All of that doesn't matter, because somewhere along the way, there was that rope that was tied around their ankle, And now that rope is invisible, but still as powerful in keeping them in place. And that is exactly what happens to us as humans. When we are small, when we are from our previous life, someone tied a rope around our ankle. Maybe it sounded like, when you sat down for dinner and you didn't like what you were given, and you said, can I have something else? And someone said to you, you get what you get and you don't get upset. You have everything you need. Don't be greedy. You're being ungrateful. Or even in today's society where positivity sounds like, be grateful for what you have. Be grateful that you are suffering from a life you once believed was going to be a dream for you. Be grateful, be grateful, be grateful. And what gratitude becomes a muzzle. Gratitude becomes, it's not about be grateful and expand. It becomes be grateful and shut up. And that is the invisible rope that is tied around so many of our ankles. Be grateful and shut up. You're lucky to be in this room. You're lucky to have the opportunities that you have today. You're lucky that you're able to put food on the table. You're lucky that you are able to live the life that you currently live, especially in this economy, especially the way that the world is going. You're lucky. So be grateful and shut up. And yeah, maybe you're unhappy, but that's a you problem. Because there's so many other, you ever not finish a meal and your parents tell you, look how many, there are so many kids in Africa who don't have a meal today, right? Now, again, I'm not saying anything's wrong with those narratives. Well, what I am trying to show you is how we are taking those narratives from our childhood and how they are keeping us stuck today, because we are forgetting that we're able to pull the rope. We are forgetting that we are able to tug the rope and potentially get different results. That if we asked for more, we might actually get it. That if we untied that rope, we might actually be able to explore other things. So that is really what the challenge is today. What is enough for you? What is your belief about what enough means? Because as humans evolve and grow, our definition is constantly changing. We are constantly looking for that next level, and that's not greed. That's human nature. Now, that doesn't apply to everybody, and that's okay too. But what is harmful is when you start shaming yourself for wanting that part of you, for wanting to be able to learn, expand, and grow. And maybe the enough, your next version of enough, your next version of more isn't going to be about money. Maybe it's more fulfillment. Maybe it's more time at home. Maybe it's more grace for yourself. Maybe it's a more title. Maybe it's a higher paycheck. I don't know what the more looks like for you. But accept the fact that your more is allowed to evolve. Your more is allowed to change. And you're allowed to explore that more, experience it, and realize this wasn't what I thought it would be. And that's okay too. Because you could take the parts of it that are good and expand on those pieces, and you could take the parts that are not so good and find ways to minimize them. That's what this is about, right? It's not about all or nothing. And it doesn't make you greedy. It doesn't make you ungrateful. It gives you the power to start making decisions that are in alignment with your version of success versus the version of success that maybe someone else has given you up to this point. It allows you to make decisions that are in alignment with who you are and what is currently looking like it's going to bring you joy. Because, and I know this sounds kind of woo and everything like that, don't get me wrong, because it doesn't mean that you're going to live a life that you're never going to have hard work, you're never going to have discomfort, you're never going to have whatever. But the idea is that you're doing more of the things that bring you, that where you feel like your strengths are being fulfilled. You are doing more of the things where you feel like you are making an impact that you want to make. And you are doing more of the things that you feel are in alignment with not just who you are, but who you want to become. In addition to some of the things that maybe you just don't want to do. It's a balance. So my challenge for you, or my prompt for you today, I'm just going to say hello and welcome. Here's my challenge for you today, because next week we're going to go into strategic planning and decision making. But before we get into that next week, we really got to challenge, what are your beliefs about yourself? What are your beliefs about more? What are your beliefs about enough? And when you think about wanting more for yourself, what comes up for you? When you think about wanting something different from what you currently have, what comes up for you? And then what do you want to tell it differently in order for you to think bigger and move forward faster? Okay? So think about what that is. Now, if resistance comes up, one of the hardest questions for many clients to answer is, what do you want? Because it's hard. Because everybody knows what they want, but there's a voice at the back of their head that knows what it wants. But when you ask the question, what is it that you want? It travels through several layers of filters. Because I know what I want, but I probably won't get it. But that doesn't seem reasonable. But that's selfish to want. But the other person probably won't give it to me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Filter, filter, filter. And what comes out is, I don't know. So I'm going to challenge you. Remove those filters for just a moment and just think to yourself, what do I want more of in this chapter of life? And talk to that little voice at the back of your skull. What does it want more of in this chapter of your life? And that will be really helpful for when we go into next week. So now we know that the plan that we're going to make is in alignment with what's back here versus what's out here and what's right here. All right? So take your time to do that. That is all for today. Again, today was all about redefining what enough is and creating an introduction into belief systems and how beliefs inform our strategies and our plans. Once again, not everything, but many things that I'm going through over the course of this series are going to be available in the book that I'm launching called Be in the Room, How to Stop Shrinking and Start Leading with Purpose. Would love it if you all support. Let's say what I want. What I want is for people to support this book. What I want is for people to comment book in the comments here so that they can pre-order their copy, because the things that I'm bringing forward in this book are things that have worked with my clients, have worked for myself, and are based on so many success stories across best practices in leadership. So please, get the book. The other thing I want to let you know is that if anything is resonating with you and you want to be able to dig a layer deeper, you can always go to my website, www.beintheroomcoaching.com, because on that website, I offer complimentary private intense strategy intensives. Now, this is because we can talk a lot about the tools and the know and the what in these lives, and you're going to have a lot of insight, and I'm going to provide you with a lot of prompts. But sometimes you may need to be challenged to go a little bit deeper. And that's where I would come into play. Okay? So you have that option as well. If none of those are for you, please make sure that you continue to show up for these lives, because again, this is day 5 out of 20 and we've already accomplished a lot. And there are so many more tools and strategies coming up ahead. Again, this week's focus was on emotional mastery. Next week's focus is going to be on strategic planning and decision making. And we're going to get you into the room that you really want to be in. And if you are already in the room that you want to be in, we're going to get you owning that room that you want to be in. We're going to be increasing your impact with less guilt, with less burnout, with more fulfillment. My goal is that you are lighting it up not only externally, but internally as well. Yes, DJ Honey Vibes actually did book a strategy session with me, and you are welcome. I'm so glad that it was impactful for you. Okay? That is all. I will see you all next week on Monday. We're going to reverse engineer in Monday's live. We're going to take your results, the discomfort that you're currently feeling, anything that you are currently not enjoying about where you are right now, and we are going to reverse engineer it down to where it's all coming from, the root of where those dissatisfactory results are coming from, and we're going to move you into a place where you know exactly what actions to take in order to achieve the results that you want. Because the outcome of that session is going to inform Tuesday's session, which is going to be all about strategy and planning, taking that vision, taking those wants and putting it to, okay, this is what I want to do. What does this need to look like over the next year? we're going to take that for you. All right. Have a great rest of your day. Happy Friday. Hope you all do something fun today and maybe even this weekend. I don't know what I'm going to do. No, I have a cheer competition. So that's what I'll be doing. And I look forward to hanging out with you guys on Monday. Talk soon. Thanks, Sean.